Team Group D. Cure, Astrea, Ryung, Solar. Africa TV, Freak Up Studio, Live. 2023 GSL Season 2.
Welcome back, everyone. Cure is out of control, dude. He moves on as he should.
Yeah, he looked so good in TVP and in TVZ today. Absolutely unstoppable in those matchups. Haven't seen his TVT play yet, but I'm sure that's crisp as well.
Yeah.
Looking forward to watching him dominate the round of 8 too, because he just looks to be on another plane of existence. But now, tasteless. Time for the elimination match here in Group D. Ryung versus Astrea. One of these players will be the first player eliminated tonight. Their path in Code S will end.
Yeah, this is going to be it, man. It's sad to see one of these two go. I got to say, being honest, Astrea looked a lot stronger today than Ryung. Ryung really had a pretty rough, it was like Final Destination, the esport match. I mean, the way he went down was brutal. So we got to see what Ryung can kind of pull back here. It's a different matchup, it's a different player, but Astrea, you know, even when he lost, he was looking pretty strong. He was kind of going toe-to-toe there.
Yeah, with Cure.
Of all people, yeah, with Cure. So, you know, if he can look that good against Cure and Ryung just looked very shaky in general, I think this is Astrea favored. Let's find out.
2023 GSL Season 2. Onside Gaming, Ryung. Match4 Esports, Astrea.
Cool to see that Match4 is supporting him, by the way. Shout outs to
Yeah.
them. I think most people probably know Match4, but for those that don't, I mean, you can basically use their website, their service to make a show match, you know, big or small, against anybody. So, you know, let's say you're a streamer, you want to have a match against a friend, you want your community to donate to the prize pool, and you can cut up the prize pool how you want. That's how you can do it there, which I think is great.
Yeah, very cool for them to get their feet wet supporting RTS Esports as well, too.
Yeah.
I mean, Astrea, I'm sure he's played in his fair share of Match4 tournaments and now representing them here in the GSL.
I'm sure I know I have. I mean,
Yeah?
I think we've all played in some Match4 matches online, you know. It's a cool way to kind of directly crowdfund specifically, you know, esports matches or stuff like that. So, yeah, props to them for supporting Max Angel, and I think he's a good horse to bet on here. I mean, he's looking very strong.
Absolutely. He's been training in Korea since ESL Summer, if I'm not mistaken, so seems to be in good form right now. Against Cure, as you said, he did go toe-to-toe there in the first match. But, I mean, losing 2-0 against Cure, he still had some highlight moments, right? In Game 2, it felt like he was in a very good position for at least some portion of the game. And considering that Cure, not only in his current form, is just firing on all cylinders, but historically is one of the best TVP players in the world, up there with Maru, over the past years. It's just a testament to where Astrea's PBT is at. And, you know, we could have seen Astrea maybe be a little bit more experimental there because he knows that he's going up against one of the best TVP players in the world. And I wouldn't be surprised if he came up here against Ryung with some builds that he's really planning on using to get himself out of this group and to the round of 8. I wouldn't even be surprised if he hit some of his best stuff specifically to prepare for this potential match.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in seeing Astrea's continued performance in this matchup and how exactly he wants to try to approach it. He did behave very passively, and that's always one of the things I've really respected about Astrea. I know it sounds silly to be excited about passive play, but I really do like when somebody can kind of just, you know, swat away any attack and just keep growing and go unfazed.
Interesting Stargate timing, by the way, Tasteless, being thrown down after the Robo and after a couple of gateway units are done as well. So I'm imagining this is going to go into Phoenix Colossus, but the timing is something that we don't see too often in PvT. Usually you build the Stargate early so that basically every unit that comes out of the Stargate that you're going to use is going to build energy over time. And so you got to think about time as a resource. And generally, because of that, players like to get that Stargate up as early as they can. But instead of Warp Prism coming out and this Stargate is an interesting blend of units.
Yeah, it's a lot of tech.
It is.
It's a lot of gas, not a lot of stuff.
I'm trying to think of how many times I've seen a Warp Prism and a Phoenix in production at the same
here's
time
what's
this
crazy.
early.
He's going to scout everything, too.
Yeah.
He literally knows everything that he's up to.
Good scout there with that Hellion. And behind this, Ryung back at home, just going for a 1-1-1 with this expansion. So while Astrea is kind of going for this very high-tech play, Ryung is doing the same thing, but his builds up to a composition that is very scary and one big timing push. And so you got to have that in the back of your mind as Astrea, once you come into the main base and scout this out, that there's a very real threat of Ryung pushing on 2 bases here after having scouted your kind of fickle opening.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When you see people being too greedy, it can be scary at first. You go, oh gosh, I mean, it seems like they've got so much, but actually you attack them and they just don't have the necessary tools to fight you with anything.
I think we might have to have a recall on that Warp Prism too, as now this drop coming into the main base. Astrea actually not looking at it, loses the Warp Prism, instead prioritizing SCVs, but with his attention diverted, Ryung was able to get the full drop of 8 Marines out, so.
Whoa, he's gonna be able to get that. No, I guess not. I thought the medevac was gonna get shot down for a second.
That was close. Ryung really threading the needle.
I think he could still get it, actually.
Certainly the medevac. He might take some hull damage doing it, but he should be able to chase that down. It is so low on HP.
Seems like that should have gone a lot better. Yeah, there it is. Should have gone better for Ryung, but there was kind of a weird interaction. Both sides got hit at the same time. He's going to move out again, and Astrea is doing a pretty magnificent balancing act here, kind of getting all this tech out and getting a third base. And like, if you mess up the first couple of attacks as Ryung, you're going to be so behind.
Yeah, so a lot of it's going to come down to this push right now at the third base here of Astrea, and I would be surprised if he actually tried to commit to holding this position, but the threat is, should you forfeit this spot? I mean, this place below the gold minerals is such a fantastic position to actually siege the natural expansion from as Ryung, and with this heavy siege tank-based style, you got to think that he has that in his mind right now, that he's going to siege this expansion, that he is going to hit these probes on the minerals and the gas on the right side of the expo. And for Astrea, as you said, doing this balancing act, yes, he's teching a lot. He was going for that third base, but at the cost of really not having a lot of gateway units. So the bulk of his army, it's mostly in these Phoenixes. He does have 1 Immortal. He has a Robobay out, so he can make 1 Colossus, which actually just now has completed, but on the ground, not too much. But luckily for him, Ryung is going to retreat from this position. I was worried, should Ryung have really committed to this attack off 2 bases and just rallied it? I think that there was some big potential for Ryung to get something done, but instead, build order's going a little bit Astrea's way.
Yeah, and I think also just kind of every little interaction here. I mean, he's come through. Remember, the Phoenixes can actually outrun Vikings. So, they can kind of pick and choose their fights. And, the rest of the tech tree is already getting filled out here for Astrea. It's not a game that Ryung has necessarily lost. It's just he's had a lot of fights where he just never came out on top.
And especially those Phoenixes picking off key units such as, a medevac and a siege tank really softens the composition that Ryung is going for right now. Is, looking at the units tab, 2 siege tanks, 2 Vikings, 17 Marines, no medevacs on the field, no Marauders as the first ones just now enter production. Meanwhile, Astrea at home, he's sitting happily with 2 Colossus. Soon is going to have 3. He's going double Forge behind this. And I feel like he's gotten enough tempo here in the early game that now he can really just kind of power up and do exactly what he wants to do.
Yeah. Astrea, we're like almost 8 minutes into this game, and he's gotten so much different tech up here, and it's all been laid out so neatly. He's now taken his 4th base here. And again, it's that really cool development that I like to see from Astrea, that he's very good at just kind of having that balancing act perfect, continuing to just grow. And he's basically going to be ready to brace for impact, because Terran is going to come out shortly here. and really try to take a fight. And we see the gateways are being filled in as very quickly Astrea is just developing the rest of his tech.
Yeah,
Or his production, not tech, excuse me.
And I imagine that Astrea should be able to close the distance on the upgrades by the time that Ryung is pushing out as well. And also behind this, taking a 4th base, 5 more gateways in production, as you pointed out. Now is the window for Ryung to really get something done before charge is completed, before 1-1 is completed, before these 7 gateways in production really start to power up, before Astrea can get the disruptor count to what he wants it to be. This is the window for Ryung, and if he doesn't take advantage of this opportunity, I feel like we might see this one swing wildly in Astrea's favor.
Yeah, the push is going to be coming out now. It's all going to come down to can he hold this. I love what he's doing with the Phoenixes too. He's trying to get in between the reinforcement point and see if he has any high value units he can pick up. Astrea comes out, takes a few shots. He's controlling the Phoenixes and the Colossi both in different control groups very well.
And he's doing a good job of buying himself a little bit of time. Now this rally point's going to cost him a little bit as that disruptor goes down for free, but the +1 ground weapons will complete before this battle commences. +1 armor is not very far behind it. Charge as well is done, plus all those gateways. So now Astrea with these 800 minerals can just start to really throw down with gateway units in the middle of the map. And you know, should he be able to swarm this? Oh no, not another disruptor. Please be careful, Astrea.
Yeah, I mean, there's a point where, you know, that happens too many more times. You're really going to be feeling it. The push is coming in here. I think that Astrea is just going to abandon the 4th base.
Another disruptor comes down, and he decides he's just going to focus on these siege tanks with so much bio committed on the left side Nexus, and that should allow Astrea to clean up a good chunk of this. A lot of the critical forces here for Ryung are being eliminated. Most of the siege tanks now are down. That count reset to 2. But the bio ball on the ground still very strong. 20 Marines. 7 Marauders in total.
Yeah, Astrea does drop that base. He warps in a lot of Stalkers over here. He's got those Zealots. It looks like he wants to wedge that in between the reinforcements and coming forward now.
Yeah, and an interesting engagement here by Ryung. I feel like he was a little bit over-ambitious there trying to attack in those 3 Colossi. And oh my goodness, the Zealots actually catching Marines and Ghosts here being reinforced, as these are the first Ghosts that Ryung has produced. Some critical units as yet another disruptor gets rallied to its death, I think. But Astrea making a very smart call to just let that 4th base die, focus his army on the siege tanks, and once that is taken away from Ryung, suddenly he has a lot less leverage with his army on that side of the map, and the follow-up engagement went very well in Astrea's favor.
Yeah, I mean, that was you know, for a little bit, I think really good by Ryung. I think Ryung, at least in that moment, I think the better call is just to pull out. You've killed the Nexus, now get back out and get further ahead. I think we've all been there, right? You fall into the trappings of just continuously pushing, where it's better to try to, you know, cut your losses, keep expanding, and then reconfigure another attack.
For now, he's going to take a 4th command center, so he is keeping pace with Astrea, at least in that regard. And although I say that, Astrea is double expanding. He's taking the 12 o'clock Nexus as well. Is he going to take another expansion up at the top right? I see a probe, I think, moving around, maybe just for spotter pylons. But Astrea, he is known to be a little bit greedy with his Nexuses at times.
Yeah, he's going to grow very neatly into his quadrant on the map. He may start pushing here.
I feel like we are getting to the point where Astrea really can get something done.
Look at the mini-map. I mean, he really has vision with spotters in all the corners. So he knows if medevacs are coming. If they're not coming, you can attack. Terran's not going to have some kind of warp mechanic. It's like he has a bunch of battle cruisers that just appear in your main base, right? So the push is going to come, and this is going to be the real test of Ryung's defenses.
Yeah, push coming in here at this 4th base, able to section off a couple of these bio units. Meanwhile, Zealots running in between the natural expansion and the 3rd base while this drop takes place here in the natural. So picking off siege tanks and SCVs. I feel like Ryung maybe didn't even notice this attack here at the natural. The SCVs did not respond. 10 in total going down. Astrea maybe didn't get the big engagement that he wanted, but certainly was able to chip away at Terran quite a bit.
And Astrea continuing to just ring his expansions around the edge of the map. You know, the Warp Prism, it was obviously eventually fended off. But yeah, I mean, Astrea's gotten to where he wants to be. Ryung is shortly here going to gear up for another attack. You can even see Astrea making cannons and batteries everywhere just so he has some kind of sustainability in these bases in case he does get dropped and has to recall.
Yeah, and now upgrades are tied at 2-2 apiece, but Ryung, after he had that faster 1-1 pacing, as the Observer now is highlighting, he did delay the armory quite a bit while he pushed. So his upgrades lagging behind Protoss quite a bit, and Astrea might be able to hit a 3-3 timing because of that, especially now that he's nearing maxed. And you see him, now that he's maxed supply, as you said, throwing down cannons and shield batteries at some of these auxiliary bases. Behind that, he's also filling out his tech tree. He got gravitic drive, upgrades for speed on the Warp Prism and on the Observer. He's throwing down a Dark Shrine as well, adding even more additional gateways. As you know, for now, he's content just to sit at 200 supply and spend all of these minerals and gas that he's getting on powering up his infrastructure and taking good trades like this one. Now, Ryung trading some bio to actually go for 2 disruptors. I'm not sure if that was cost efficient for him. And oh, a big engagement actually. Nice EMPs by Ryung, able to pick off both of those Archons. Really takes a lot of the power away here from Astrea's force.
You can see that without the Archons, the Zealots are utterly useless. Especially against Concussive.
And now Ryung.
Oh, nice blink on there. Wow.
Yeah, Ryung just kind of consolidating over here on 5 bases, as it is a very tough position here for Astrea to breach. And these Zealots now are going to have to be on defensive duty, as Ryung is going to try and take down this expansion at the 2 o'clock expansion. Meanwhile, another skirmish taking place. Oh no, not enough Stalkers to deal with the Colossus, and actually a surprising recall over here.
You know, he's still got some Zealots. That's a funny pull.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, it's getting to be a bit of a strained position here for Ryung. Astrea has not done any kind of fatal damage yet. And so this game's going to go on here. But this very central base for Ryung, it's going to be hard to hold. It really sticks out like a sore thumb.
It is hard to hold, but having that planetary there, especially with the sensor tower, and actually hold that thought as another engagement taking place over here by the top right tower, as Ryung is really fixating on this. Wow, man, putting so much pressure here on Astrea, having the confidence to build this expansion right next to Astrea's own over here by the 3 o'clock position. And now Liberator switch coming in here for Ryung. I'm a little bit worried for Astrea because it feels like these past couple of engagements, although they have been going blow for blow, Astrea has lost a lot of the complexity of his army. Just only 2 Colossus now. He has, I think, maybe 4 or 5 disruptors here with this army, and while he is able to get this command center, his army composition not quite as advanced as it once was.
Now, it looks like Astrea's going to back up. He's going to kind of rotate back into the middle of the map. Ryung's got a pretty good push just south of where this Liberator attack is. And we are getting to the point where it's like, it's kind of hard in this matchup for both sides to have half the map. It's very different from TVZ in that regard.
Yeah, it'll be very difficult for either of these guys to actually take an expansion.
Oh no.
How long has this been going on? 3 disruptors caught between those robotics facilities. I don't even know if Astrea had noticed. I think if
he might not. He might go for a long part of this game not realizing this. There's so much going on. There's so much of the map that he has.
Absolutely. I mean, if he had noticed, yeah, he's at 13 disruptors right now. There's no way you want to go up to that high a count. And he's probably right now wondering where a little bit of this army supply is.
Yeah, it's going to feel weird, right? You're like, something's going on here. Why don't I have any of my stuff? Really good surround here by Ryung, and now I'm starting to worry for Astrea.
Yeah, Astrea, he finally realizes, destroys one of the robos, and it might be a little bit too late, though. Ryung killing those 2 Colossus has fantastic tempo over here on the top right, able to start sieging down this base with Liberators creating really a no man's land here for Astrea, as he cannot cross this junction of the map with that composition. Just too many disruptors, and you know, gateway units alone, even with the shield battery and cannons here, cannot contest the 3-3 bio taking down this top right base, and that means this expansion also here is going to be thwarted.
Yeah, I mean, with that, there's going to be that base at the top right. It's totally marooned. I can't imagine that's going to stay alive. Kind of a bad A move here. Hold up. Is it the greatest A move?
I mean, the connections with the SCVs are big, but not worth the cost there of those disruptors, is Astrea taking some really unfavorable trades over the last couple of minutes. And now that Ryung is getting up to a Liberator ball like this, you have to think that this game is exactly where he wants to be. There's no Tempest counter here for Astrea in the pipeline at all. It's just gateway units and disruptors, and should Ryung play this slowly and conservatively, I think it's going to be very difficult for Astrea to actually make something happen, but I hold that thought as he actually gets a great jump on this with these Stalkers. Ryung a little bit out of position, as Astrea is able to clean up those Liberators, but still on the other side of the map, Ryung just continuing to do so much damage.
He's going to have to recall like we just saw because Stalker, Disruptor, it's just not a nimble comp, right? It takes a while for them to march to any one position. That Nexus that we were talking about, it's going to go down now. Worker count's pretty even. Base count is actually somewhat even, but that's not good for Protoss. And we need to figure out if Astrea could do something to come back in this game.
I think he needs one really good engagement to actually make something happen. And with these Disruptor shots he's looking for, and some nice connections so far. Each one of these getting a good bit of bio, but really not the comp that you want to try and breach a position like this one, as most of the Disruptors on the front line do fall.
Yep, the push continues on. A nice blink forward.
Yeah, he's actually able to make some good ground here, being able to kill that Liberator, but this Planetary is such a thorn in his side, and you know, Ryung, he's trying to consolidate over here. Another blink forward, but into a lot of bio. All the Stalkers falling here on the front lines. Disruptors as well, not able to make the connections. I feel like this is it.
Yeah, I think Astrea may be dead here. I don't think he has a recall available here either. I think he should have been a little bit safer around the Planetary and just chipped away at that with Disruptors instead of trying to pull underneath it. GG, Ryung takes game one. Astrea is in Trouble Town.
Yeah, that game, it started so good for him, but Ryung was able to get his composure there in the mid game, and you know, a couple of bad trades didn't go Astrea's way. He loses the complexity of his army. Meanwhile, Ryung, you know, he maintains the complexity that he already had, and on top of that, he adds in ranged Liberators, and you know, that can play very well into the comp that Astrea was going for. And a couple of missteps there too. I'm thinking back to the rally Disruptors into siege tank lines very early on in the game. I think he lost 2 Disruptors that way, maybe even 3. And then later on, you know, he wasn't able to get the army supply that he needed because he had 3 Disruptors caught between 2 Robos. So a couple of unforced errors there for Astrea. He's going to have to tighten the ship up if he wants to come back in game 2.
Yeah, we need to see a better game there from Astrea. But I'll tell you what, man, Ryung making that lost series versus Solar look like a fluke. Playing much better, which of course is much needed if he's going to survive into the next round here of the GSL. We're going to go into that map now. It's loaded up. This is Ryung versus Astrea, continuing on.
GSL Season 2. On-site gaming, Ryung. Match4 Esports, Astrea.
It was an interesting previous game. It did seem like it, there were a couple of moments where the game became very weird. A couple of interactions there. I think Astrea just was not prepared for that moment where the Liberators were able to cut him out, to ice him out of the 2 bases in the top right. And, you know, he seemed to try to force his way in. He lost all his Colossus. And then it was just a weird composition of, like, Stalker Disruptor.
Yeah.
Which isn't fast. When you're pushing and you're trying to take fights, it's good. But if they're, like, hitting one side of the map and then the other for your bases, it's really hard to recover anything.
I feel like the Disruptor switch was intended to support the Colossus, not replace them entirely, because once those Colossus were taken out of the equation there for Astrea, he lost a lot of the complexity of his army. The only real AoE damage, really the only damage output that he had besides, you know, Blink Stalkers connecting with Liberators, was going to come from Disruptor shots. I mean, gateway units, they just don't really cut it when you get to that kind of late game and you're fighting against 3/3 stemmed bio. So it definitely did start to slip away from him from that position on, but even before then, I feel like there were some missteps where some trades, as I said, just didn't quite go his way. And you know, once the Colossus count gets reset or the Disruptor count gets pushed back, it really slows down all of the following text there for Protoss, because you need some sustain of AoE to stay alive. You can't just let that fall and then try to tech up into something new. You have to replace it immediately if you want to keep tabs on the Terran player. And so Astrea, you know, he never really was able to work his way up to an answer to the Liberators. Right. He was never able to tech into something such as Tempest or even add in Storm into his army composition. And once those Colossus fell, it was really just, as you said, the Blink Stalkers and the Disruptors. And, you know, at that stage in the game, although it is a powerful composition in the mid game, once you're going up against, you know, Liberators and 3-3 bio with Ghost, it's just very difficult to get anything done, especially if you're trying to breach a position like that planetary.
So Ryung's making a starport way in the bottom center of the map. Let's see what he wants to do with this. He can come up here and kill the SCV that's making the supply depot, but that's going to be that. Meanwhile, for Astrea, it's the Twilight Council. And you might imagine a Robo's not going to be that far out from that. I think that what Ryung's looking at, and there's that Robo I was talking about, Ryung might be looking at the last game and being like, well, Astrea did a lot of tech at once. Why don't I just attack him right away?
Yeah, that might be it. Will be a medevac, so it's going to be a Hellion drop here. This is the play for Ryung, and we'll see how many gateways Astrea goes up to. He is adding a second one right now at the natural. And, you know, Astrea, kind of hard to predict exactly how he's going to transition. I could see him both going for a 4-gate Blink transition out of this, or just a really fast expansion with these 2 gateways. But it seems like he will only have the 2 gates up. Actually, where did that Adept Shade to? Did he ever catch wind of this proxy? I don't think he has any idea. And the Hellion's now coming into the main base. 4 Stalkers in total on the map. And he's right in the blind spot.
Beautifully done. Looks like he just sees the tip of that Hellion. And so a lot of damage inbound here.
Yeah, 3 Hellion. Oh no, he's attacking the Nexus. Try to A-move on the ground and instead loses a little bit of tempo right there as 7 probes are going to fall. 8, in fact. Okay, 9.
And he still has the medevac alive with the 2 Hellions, so that's a threat for later on. So, I mean, not only did Astrea get beat up and lose a bunch of workers, but now he has to deal with the never-ending threat of that medevac if he ever leaves his base.
Yeah, very annoying position for Astrea to be in, and 9 probes is many more than you want to lose in a situation like that one. I mean, a couple of probes, sure, understandable, but 9 probes, that's a lot of damage, and I don't even know. I mean, he technically, it was in his field of vision, this Liberator moving across the map, but I don't think Astrea saw it. That was such a brief glimpse. This Liberator coming into his natural expansion might actually get some damage done.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, it's not that Astrea's lost the game, but this is a real uphill fight from here on out. You know, any pro gamer is going to tell you, you just, first of all, can never let this happen, right? Now he's going to do his own Stalker drop, and I like this a lot. This is a great way to try to come back and even this out. And, you know, those 4 Stalkers, they one-shot workers in between Blink and the Warp Prism.
Wow. 9 SCVs in total going down, so Ryung getting greed checked a little bit here by Astrea. I mean, that could not have gone better, coming back in and just getting 9 worker kills to even things up a ton. Astrea's going to be feeling very good about that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a great play there. This is already a pretty nice recovery. But imagine, you know, had he not been dropped like that, right? I guess it's true for either side. So he's going to bait out some tank shots and just keep trying to do damage. I mean, hey, the shields will regen. You get a couple more workers, it's worth it.
Yeah, Astrea really prioritizing the worker kills over the holes on those Stalkers. Is I guess scouting the 3rd command center makes him feel like he isn't really going to be under pressure anytime soon. Back at home, besides taking this 3rd base, he's also building Double Forge. He's getting that robotic space set up. Slowly beginning to transition here, and I wouldn't be surprised if he threw down a 4th Nexus as well sometime soon.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. I mean, he knows that he's going to have to try to keep up ahead with tempo here. But, you know, when Terran go for that 3rd command center early on, which isn't bad to do after you've done a drop that did a whole bunch of damage, that's really where, you know, the Terran doesn't have a whole lot of teeth in anything they're going to do from there on out, right? They're really in a development phase.
Yeah, the next scary moment for Protoss is going to be when Terran moves out on the map, probably with 1-1 upgrades and a very complex army that's able to lay siege either through the 3rd or 4th base of Astrea. But, you know, with Ryung only just now moving out his orbital command to that 3rd base, Astrea has just basically been powering up completely at home. He's cutting gateway units and instead spending that resources on upgrades, on thermal lance, on getting his Colossus count up. And getting a healthy number of gateways behind this too, actually choosing to build these gateways before taking a 4th expansion. So really prioritizing tempo here. And oh, this Warp Prism is going to see the Liberator. If Astrea is quick with Blink, he might be able to catch this, but...
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's just not looking. That gets to get away very easily here. And there's that fourth Nexus we were talking about. That's been started up. And I really do want to see what, you know, are going to be the nuanced situations that are going to happen here with these two as we get into mid-game, because the last game was a really interesting one, and it's such a relief to see Ryung play so much better. We've got a pretty, I don't know, is he going to push it all or not? Is there any moment that Terran can try to poke in?
Maybe now, but...
The Thermal Lance is about to finish, so sometimes that could be a timing in and of itself.
Right, I feel like for Ryung, if he's going to be active on the map, it's going to be in dropships and not something that's going to be too crazy. Just kind of sit back at home. I mean, he's already taking up into Ghost, so you can see him kind of planning to play a little bit more of a long game now. I wonder actually whether Astrea is going to be the one to try and get something done, because keep in mind, he built all of those gateways before the fourth base, and so he's been prioritizing, you know, having the capability to produce a massive units over his economy just a little bit here, and with his Warp Prism coming into the main, although it does get deflected by the missile turret, excuse me. It does seem like Astrea is trying to find an angle, but Ryung is just a tough nut to crack at this point. Oh, look at that minefield as well. I didn't even notice that he was building so many of these.
Yeah, any chance to try to just kind of dive through all that is going to be punished pretty heavily. So Astrea, I mean, I think he might just be sharking around the map for a little bit here, just trying to find any stray units anywhere. He's using those hallucinated phoenixes to draw damage onto the tank.
It's a funny little interaction, isn't it?
Yeah. And back at home, he's getting the rest of his tech up. And I think we're moments away from seeing Astrea set up a fifth base.
Yeah, it does seem that way. Setting up that fifth base in that little pocket corner by the triangle third and the main. He's setting up those pylons, and you got to think that Astrea is itching for a fight here, and maybe his game plan, based on the way he's maneuvering right now on the map, is to try and keep Ryung on these three bases and delay that fourth expansion for as long as possible. Ryung is trying to build that the fourth CC, excuse me, right outside that natural expansion, so that makes me think that he's going to try to take probably the 9 o'clock expansion, given the lack of map control that he has. Oh wow, Astrea's going up to 3 robos.
Yeah, and look at this drop coming in here. He's going to warp in right on top of this.
Actually going for the Acosta Academy. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't like that too much. Much better to go in here and try and get these SCVs and the siege tanks, but oh no, the attack priority. SCVs on hold position.
Yeah.
You got to individually click all of those with the Zealots to actually connect, so a very cost-efficient trade here for Ryung, despite losing 13 workers. I mean, sitting on 3 bases at this point in the game, you don't really mind losing those workers too much, right? Because you're already kind of oversaturated on the expansions you do have. So Ryung's going to be happy to trade those out. And actually, Astrea taking the base towards the middle here as he's feeling very comfortable with his map control. And I wonder what the plan is with these 3 robos. I mean, is he going to make disruptors 3 at a time to reinforce here?
I could be the case.
Huh.
Once Terran's up to this many bases, it's not that easy to cover everything with tanks. There's going to be kind of a loose end somewhere. Like, even these stalkers could just get behind. Astrea's got to be careful, especially with those Vikings. You got to make sure that the stalkers run interference there on those Vikings.
6 Vikings already, and ship weapons also underway, so a bit of a dangerous position here for Astrea as he was not able to actually delay that 4th base. And you know, he went for this tempo play, trying to be active on the map, but Ryung is really just content to sit in his base and macro up. I mean, he hasn't been trying to make almost any harassment happen, and with a nice move.
Yeah, this is a big play in here. I really like this.
Oh, nice shot.
You know, I do wonder if it's better to use the disruptor shots on the initial defending army first. And clear that out, and then, you know, save those shots when the Terran's weaker. Meanwhile, another good attack in over here with the Zealots. This is actually causing a lot more damage than I expected.
Yeah, perhaps that could be better, but that was a very good trade for Astrea regardless, especially with the Zealot run by in the 3rd base and the natural expansion. Actually, the Zealot still at the 3rd, just continuing to go to town on these SCVs. And Astrea, when he sees all of Ryung's army move back up to that natural ramp, you got to think that he's going to pivot back down into this 4th base and start to do some damage on this planetary now with a 50 supply lead. It's a pivotal moment for him. Another disruptor shot gets a lot of bio. The second one is good as well. Big hits from Astrea.
Yeah, and I think Astrea, you know, he got to force that fight, but it did work out. I was worried for a little bit when he targeted down the planetary, but he took out that critical structure. It's Terran on 3 bases for now. It was not an efficient trade, but that's okay because Astrea has so many more bases, he can basically crank out another army so quickly.
Yeah, now Ryung's going to be very starved for minerals as he has to rebuild this 4th command center right outside the natural expansion. And with Astrea already having a supply lead and just continuing to attack in like this, I feel like there's a real chance for him to get something done. That's a lot of disruptors.
I mean, this is looking like a pretty comfortable spot for Astrea. I'm kind of trying to survey everything that I can see, and I mean, it's going to be Ryung trying to grow just below where his 2 newest bases are back in there. But Astrea's got spotters everywhere. He's got chains of zealots that he could send out if he needs to be a nuisance somewhere else, and he's got a more balanced roaming army. Let me see up here. He did tech into the same stuff that ended in that last game. I guess Stalker Disruptor is the play he wants to have. That is the end game comp he thinks works.
Yeah, and it's been doing quite well for him so far. He's made some really big hits on this bio ball. As for a moment there, it seemed like Ryung might want to try and dive. And wow, the Zealots even catching ghosts over here between the natural and the 3rd base. And oh, big disruptor shots coming in. They're going to connect with like almost all the bio. It's kind of hard to tell. I mean, the Medivacs of the Vikings kind of blocking the view, but Astrea absolutely getting the better end of that trade.
Yeah, nicely done. Kind of a confusing fight there at the end. We're tied up 1-1. Can our young American player actually move on and win this next game?
He looked very good in that last match.
He looked like a much better version of himself than he did in game 1.
I gotta say too, it can be very difficult for a Protoss player to actually break a Terran that's content to sit on 3, maybe 4 bases and not move across the map. I mean, Ryung was sitting, he had 3 siege tanks, he had I think 1 Liberator up at one point, maybe double-digit Widow Mines, and was just happy to camp and just try to take these expansions and tech up. And Astrea was just committed to trying to take the fight. And I've seen many Protoss players, myself included, try to go for that play as Protoss and just attack, 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 and be unable to actually break the Terran and really throw away a lead. But Astrea just making the nice calculated plays, was able to come away with a win, able to focus down the planetary when it mattered most and take down that 4th expansion, remove a lot of the economy there of the Terran player, and then follow up with some very good trades.
Yeah, and again, he was dropped so early on and lost so many workers. It's cool to see that he came back, and he came back with a drop of his own. Just a very agile Stalker Warp Prism moment, just cycling in and out the Stalkers, using their shields to tank damage, and then catching up in the worker kills.
Yeah, let's not forget that those 4 Hellions got 9 probes in total killed. I mean, had that 4 Stalker drop not been able to pay off the way it did, I mean, that's a totally different game. So it's a little bit lucky for Astrea in a sense. Are you okay?
I'm drinking green tea. I think it's drying my throat out.
Yeah, just have some water, man. But thinking back on that, I mean, if Ryung had went for a different build order selection and it didn't go for a fast 3rd CC, suddenly there's no window really for Astrea to actually move in with those Stalkers and get those kills. But also, he made the right read where it's like, there might be this opportunity where I can move across the map with this small selection of units. Are you good now?
I'm good. Talk, Phil.
Move across with this selection of units and get these picks. And I mean, 9 SCVs in total from that 4 Stalker drop, matching, you know, the kind of blunder defense that he had on his side at home. I mean, keep in mind, when those Hellions came into his main base, he had his Stalkers attacking his Nexus at first. So they weren't moving to actually run interference between the Hellions and the probes. They
literally
were
the worst thing that can happen. You know, you misclick and you're attacking your own stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, how much composure do you have to have there as Astrea to make that right read in the moment with the 4 Stalkers and the Warp Prism in a timing that can be very scary for you in the early stages of the game there as Protoss in what is an elimination match, a must-win map. Because if he lost that one, he would be, you know, out of this group already, but instead fighting for his life now going into game 3.
Yeah, well, it's like we said earlier, this seems to be the player that is able to keep his cool, who's able to even when he's making, you know, big egregious errors in the game, not freak out, not get self-critical, not tunnel vision, and instead stabilize and come back and win.
Yeah, he's playing very well right now, and you know, Ryung and Astrea really going toe-for-toe after game 1 and game 2 as we're getting ready to go into the final map.
GSL
One of these players will
Season 2.
advance.
Onside Gaming, Ryung. Match4 Esports, Astrea.
So the winner of this map will advance to face Solar in the deciding match here.
It's a big opponent to face off against.
Yeah, and he's had a lot of time to prepare as well. And I was looking at the stage in between these games and on the breaks, and Solar has just not stopped practicing during all of these matches on stage. I mean, he is committed and ready for his next opponent here. As Astrea looks like he's going to do a little bit of a scout here for a proxy. I wonder exactly what his game plan is going to be here against Ryung. It seems like his general idea is to open Blink and then go into Colossus and then go up to 2 or 3 Robo Disruptor, as we saw him go for that both in Game 1 and Game 2. Game 2 worked a lot better for him than in Game 1. And I wonder whether he will shake that up a little bit. You know, sometimes, map number 2, we did see him get there just with a pure Twilight Council off 2 gateways in a Robo. And game number 1, he did it after a Phoenix opening with Colossus. So there are a couple of different pathways that Astrea has shown us he's comfortable taking to getting to that mid-game composition that works for him. And it makes me wonder exactly what the game plan is going to be for Astrea here in this one.
Well, let's also remember, I mean, if you're going to win GSL, what's the race you got to beat? In this one, it's Terran.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's how, a Star League pans out. Is it's like, well, if you can take on Terran, then you can probably be fine, right? You're mostly going to be encountering Terrans. It's been a Terran-heavy year at GSL. The season is no exception. So I don't know what Astrea's mindset is in tournaments like this. I do know he's one of the players that's played in the most GSLs historically as a non-Korean. And this tournament is uniquely different from other international tournaments in that it is very spread out and therefore gives everybody a lot of time to prep. So I wonder if he thinks about this in a way of like, well, what builds do I show here so that I can beat the stronger Terrans later on?
I think in Astrea, in a must-win match like this, you're just going to bring your best stuff here against Ryung. I mean, deal with the PBTs that come later when they come later. First, you got to get there. You have to beat Ryung in this decider match, and then you have to go on and beat Solar in a PBZ, which is a gauntlet in and of its own. I don't think you can really try to focus on what-ifs for the round of 8 at this point. I think you just make yourself an open book as, well, actually almost able to deny this. He's going to get this SEV. If he moves down, he can grab it.
Yeah, he's just going to go with a hold position there.
Nice maneuver, though. Usually you see the bunker get set up like this, and it generally just shuts down this adept aggression, but Astrea almost getting the kill on the constructing SEV.
Yeah, it would have been a big, amazing start had he actually managed to pull that off. We've got Blink coming here. We'll see if the Robo is going to be, the next part of this build order. I imagine it would be. And kind of your bread and butter PvET openers.
Yeah, it seems almost mirrored to the previous game. Only missing that robotics facility right now as we might have a third Nexus go down before that Robo gets built. Just a little bit faster on the macro side here for Astrea. And what do we have recalling here? Is this the Adept that was out forward? Yeah, so Astrea really not playing around. Does not want to let this Hellion and Reaper get into his main base.
So there's that third Nexus just coming away. Terran, just going to continue to tack up here. It's going to be another quiet one here. A little bit of a quicker third Nexus than I expected. The Robo actually coming down now, along with the double gases.
Yeah, so he is mixing it up a little bit here, and I like this kind of tempo play.
He's going to end up in the same spot, but he did it in a different order. Now Ryung seems to see this and say, well, wait a minute. Why don't I come in here and hit this? And the scouting Phoenix, it's always the worst if you scout for it, but it barely misses it, because then you have the wrong information.
And you also don't have energy for something like a Guardian Shield in a situation like this one. Yeah, I feel like this third base is almost has to be forfeit.
Yeah. It's funny when we saw it start up here, I'm like, oh, okay, that seems soon. And then we see it, we see exactly why Protoss tend to kind of be a little bit slower. He actually set the, what?
Set the Sentry in
first
first
tank
because
the damage.
Yeah, it's not going to take any bonus damage from the siege tank because it's a light unit, not armored, and so
I mean,
does absorb a little bit, and I'm surprised he actually let Nexus finish. So Astrea actually going to blink forward, take down that siege tank, but reinforcements are coming here for Ryung.
Did he just die?
He might have. I mean, this is 400 minerals he is not going to get back, and there's no way of holding on to this base.
You know, you have two options there.
Oh.
You either do what Astrea did and try to save the game, or you abandon it and stay back. And he basically lost the Nexus. He's going to lose most of these Stalkers. We still have two that are basically on the run. The third Nexus starts, but of course Ryung can pretty easily set up for another push. He didn't lose too much back there.
Yeah, and Astrea got hurt really bad with this one. He is able to build this extra base, which I think if Ryung knew about this, he would just continue the aggression. But in fact, he is just going to play it safe and move back home. And, you know, for Astrea right now, it's a very perilous position because that first attack, it killed what he was gunning for as his advantage with this build, which was that faster third Nexus as opposed to a faster tech up with the robotics facility. And so the robo production time, not quite what it could have been. The robo bay also a little bit delayed here as the first Colossus only just now starting.
And again, this was a different variation of the PVT opener, one where you end up in the same place, but you're a little bit greedier. And man, oh man, did Ryung ever punish it. And it looks like Ryung's inbound again to this time punish the next Nexus that's going to finish. And by the way, it's always best to hit the Nexus right when it finishes, because that means they can't cancel it.
Yeah, and behind this, Astrea also going to Forge. So while Ryung is going to levy a lot of pressure here on the third Nexus, you got to wonder whether Astrea is going to be equipped to deal with this. There isn't even a battery here. And Ryung actually just able to siege up on the high ground, building a bunker even. So this is an untenable position here for Astrea. He's going to have to hold back and lose yet another Nexus. Is even slipping up here with the Stalkers. He can't afford to lose units like this.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know, man. He's going to make another Nexus. He's already lost two. It's been under 8 minutes here. You know, the tech does continue to develop uninterrupted. Oh, man. It's going to be probes, long-distance mining. And I would not be surprised if this is a story that's told in threes, and that there's going to be a third push and a third Nexus that falls.
It does feel that way, especially with these reinforcements coming from Ryung. And up until this point, it's just been unstim bio with medevacs, some SCVs, some siege tanks that have been able to breach these positions. And you know, Ryung, he still has this anchor here too, especially with the bunker. I mean, the cybernetics core now gets taken down. That's going to have to get rebuilt here for Ryung, or for Astrea, excuse me, is he's actually going to go for another expansion. As I think he recognizes his position here is so bad that he just has to try and survive and greed behind it and hope that Ryung takes one bad fight. Because, you know, with the splash damage here on this Colossus against a marine heavy composition, maybe you can actually make something happen. Maybe Astrea can move on to Ryung's side of the map with just the Blink Stalkers and delay him, but should Ryung bring all of his forces together and start to lay siege to this third and fourth base that Astrea is trying to set up, I don't know if he's going to be able to hold on.
I mean, he shouldn't, right? If any of these instances in the game mean anything in the future instance, this should be very tough to hold. But people do miss control, mistakes do happen.
Some nice micro here with the Colossi, able to whittle away at these Marines, a lot of them getting taken out. So start of this engagement very good here for Astrea, but the sustain for Ryung with these 5 siege tanks is so scary, especially now adding in Vikings into the mix with Astrea's Stalker count so low. He cancels the Nexus over there at the bottom right, rebuilds at the triangle third, and this is just another Nexus that's going to go down tasteless.
I mean, this is about as bad as it gets, guys.
It hurts.
It's painful. It's definitely not the result I wanted here. And, you know, I mean, it's funny, we don't have a lot of pro games in like this, but I'm sure you've had a lot of, you know, those watching have had their own games kind of go this way, whether it's a win or a loss.
Yeah, this looks like my ladder game's tasteless.
Mine too, honestly. It's like, you know, it's a very straightforward way. Like, well, you know, how do you beat somebody in StarCraft? Well, usually you just stop them from expanding, and that can include just killing a third base over and over and over while you steadily grow on your side of the map.
Yeah, I mean, Astrea got greed checked with that fast third Nexus, and Ryung had the right build to counter it. And now we're just seeing Astrea really die a slow and painful death here. Only 1 Stalker in total, as these Vikings are going to have almost free reign on the Colossus. The tank spread is massive as Astrea takes his hand off the keyboard. GG is called. Ryung is going to advance to fight Solar in the final match of Group D. Astrea does get knocked out, but he had a good performance today.
He did, and I'll tell you what, he should not have been greedy. Ryung, you know, nobody makes you take a greedy base like that. And Ryung looks at that and just goes, okay, I will take that fight. It's why we always see the Robo made a little bit earlier and the third Nexus a little bit later. Is the game is that mapped out, and defense is that delicate of a thing. And look, I mean, had he gotten it up, he would have certainly had an edge on Ryung. But that's why you've got to be hyper vigilant as a Terran. Anyways, guys, up next, the final match in the round of 16. It's going to be the rematch of Ryung versus Solar.
I'm well trained, I should be on your station. It's electric slide, guitar, bassist. Hit the two-step, got the verification, yeah. You know I'm not basic, stand up guy, let me get an ovation. Alarms going off with the way